It's Platt, and today I ask the question, fruit punch, will it ferment? That's next. Alright, today is our third installment of our series of Will It Ferment, where I take different things you'd find at your local grocery stores, different drinks that you wouldn't necessarily think about turning into alcohol, but we'll see if we can. This week we're trying out fruit punch. The basis of this series is basically we'll take these drinks, we won't tweak them too much. If we need to add a little additional sugar, we will. I'll always throw in a little yeast nutrient to give them help. As far as that, we won't, trick up the beverage too much. We just see if it's something we can ferment and turn to alcohol. I've been kind of looking forward to do this video. Sorry about the bird. Because fruit punch, I get a lot of feedback on it. I get a lot of questions on that. I have generally in the past said no, partly, and we'll go into why here in a little bit, partly because fruit punch, out of all the things we've talked about so far, and probably even talk about in the future, is kind of most ambiguous. Sports drinks, we kind of know, all right, well, they're going to be, they're going to have the salts because they're, for hydration. Cranberry cocktails, pretty straightforward on its definition, but fruit punch is kind of general. I know when I started bartending, 20, 30 years ago, you work in a chain restaurant, somebody wanted fruit punch for the kid, you just mix different juices, throw in cranberry for color, and pretty much it was actually 100% juice. You might have thrown in some grenadine for a little more color to make it really red, but it was just kind of a mixture of juices. What you get at the grocery store, though, is not quite the same thing, even though there are people that make that type of product, blended different juices. What we generally get at the grocery store is something that's red, probably with some kind of artificial flavoring, and comes in a big old jug, but is great for, kids when they're thirsty on a summer day. As far as our purpose, again, for fermentation, it's really important to go through the ingredients. And fruit punch, you're going to have a wide variety of ingredients. Again, the sports drinks, Gatorade, Powerade, the major sports drink brands, weren't going to be too far off in their ingredients because, again, they're designed for the same thing. But fruit punch is kind of vague. The particular fruit punch we're going to try today is probably the most popular one, Hawaiian Punch. This is their lemon berry squeeze. On the bottom should give you a little hint of what we're dealing with. Natural and artificial lemon and berry flavored juice drink. Doesn't say anything about real juice. This is juice drink. Does tell us so. Excellent source of vitamin C, so we got that going for us. But anyway, that's what we're dealing with today. Let's go ahead and break down the ingredients that may give us some hint on how this is going to go. We have water, high fructose corn syrup, which for our purposes as far as fermentation is actually a good thing. In this, it contains less than 2% juice. It's a juice drink, but not a lot of juice. The juices that could comprise the juice mix are apple, clarified pineapple, passion fruit, and orange juices. Doesn't tell us how much of each, and the total volume of the juice is less than 2% of the total volume of the liquid, so not a lot of fruit juice in there. We also have fruit purees. Those could be comprised of apricot, papaya, and guava. Again, it doesn't tell us what percentage that makes up of the total. That being said, it is quite an eclectic mix of different fruits in this, so I thought that was kind of cool. We also have ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, and again, on the label it touts an excellent source of vitamin C. We have citric acid, natural and artificial flavors. It just never tells us what they are, but they have them. Pectin, acacia gum, ester gum, red 40, which is food coloring, sucralose, which is a variation of sugar, and then the last two ingredients, which I think are the most important as far as this experiment goes, potassium sorbate, which potassium sorbate and sodium hexametaphosphate. These are both preservatives. Now, potassium sorbate we actually use, and I've used in previous videos. That helps us to stop fermentation. A good example is back sweetening apple cider. Before I add the sweet juice back that could re-ferment, I need to stop the fermentation, and we use potassium sorbate. So that's not looking good for us right there, even though it doesn't tell us how much is in there. So we're kind of flying blind there. As far as sodium hexametaphosphate goes, it is considered a salt and is used as an emulsifier. It's used in things like canned milk, whipped creams, ice cream. It's an active ingredient in some toothpaste. According to the WikiLeaks link that I looked at researching this, it claims it's also used in beer. I have never heard of that. I've never seen it on a label anywhere. I've never seen it in some kind of brewing forum or whatever. I'm sure that's meant in the most very commercial sense, the most non-organic beer kind of way or whatever. But I've never even heard that used in the terms with like big breweries or whatever. I'm not calling them a liar. I've just never heard of sodium hexametaphosphate in beer. So, but if it is used in beer, then we have to think, well, then it's not necessarily negative to, again, what we're trying to do, which is ferment this. But the potassium sorbate is the one that I'm afraid may get us. That being said, we're going to go ahead with the experiment because we want to see, will it ferment? Don't know, like I said, in this base concept for will it ferment, we're not going to try to boil off things, this, that, the other. I don't know if you can boil off potassium sorbate. Maybe something I look up in a future video. And again, maybe you're buying your local grocery store brand fruit punch, stuff like that. But as the bird knows, he's trying to warn me, the potassium sorbate, if you can find a fruit punch that doesn't have that, or again, that's something you would want to look for. But we're still going to do it anyway. So with that being said, let's get after this. First thing we're going to do, is we always do, is we're going to do a gravity reading, see if we got enough sugar, you know, if we get a clean fermentation we want and we have enough sugar in there to, you know, give us a good 4 to 5% whatever. So let me come back, do a hydrometer reading, and then we'll decide if we need to add additional sugar. All right, so now we're going to do a gravity reading just to see where we're at as far as the potential alcohol potential we have for this mixture. I'll give her a look. We are sitting at 1.020. That is not going to be enough. Conceptually, even when we got a clean fermentation, we might be looking at 1%, something like that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a cup into the fruit punch. I'm just going to ferment here. That's another thing I've been doing. I've got the 1 gallon container of this, so I'm just going to ferment here. I'm going to leave this amount out so I have enough room for my cup of sugar. So let me add the cup of sugar. We'll come back then and do our gravity reading, see where we're at from there. All right, so I've added 1 cup of sugar to our 1 gallon of fruit punch, and we're going to see how that helps our gravity. The first time without the sugar, we got 1.020, which is a little too low. Let's see what we get now. All right, that's a little better. We're at around 1.040, which should get us somewhere around 4% alcohol by volume, which is probably good enough. That's, you know, your kind of session style or, you know, light lager type beers are in the high 3s, low 4s. So this should be good enough for us now. What we're going to do is I'm going to add a teaspoon of yeast nutrient, and we're going to use the same yeast I've been using this whole time, just a generic ale yeast. I'm using the SAF Ale USO5. You can use any kind of generic brewing yeast you want to out there. This is just kind of the standard we're using for, again, these experiments, but if you've got bread yeast, whatever, you know, feel free. We're just trying to kind of keep it consistent. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead, like I said, go ahead and add my yeast nutrient, pinch my yeast, roughly 2 to 3 grams per gallon, if for those of you that may ask. And I'm going to let it sit, and we'll come back in a day or two, see if we get bubbles coming, and if not, then maybe we repitch, we go from there. But let me go ahead and add my yeast nutrients, pitch the yeast, and then we'll come back in a day or two and see if the magic's happening. All right, so it's been about 24 hours, and there's a little bit of bubbling, but not a lot of action. Appears some of the yeast cells have floated up top, so I think we've got a little bit of fermentation, but not much. So I'm going to pitch in a little more yeast, see if that helps out, and we'll come back at the end of the week, do a gravity reading, and see if we got any actual fermentation. But there's a little bit going, but it's not real strong. All right, gang, so it's been about a week, and yes, I have shaven and got a haircut in the last week. I've changed shirts. Some things I have to do outside of the YouTube world, so I had to clean up a little bit. With that being said, though, let's get back to our original question. Fruit punches, will it ferment? We ended up adding some sugar because there wasn't enough sugar in here for a good proper fermentation. So we added sugar. Our original gravity reading, according to my notes, was 1040. We pitched the yeast, not much action after the first day or so, so I added a little more yeast to see if that would help. Unfortunately, I didn't really see anything as far as bubbling goes. Also, I don't see a bunch of dead yeast cells in the bottom, which means the yeast didn't reproduce. So it's not looking good for us, but we're going to go ahead and do a gravity reading, and that will give us our final bit of information, see if we did get any kind of fermentation. And unfortunately, our finishing gravity is 1.040, the same as what we started. We did not get any fermentation. It is most likely the potassium sorbate, which I talked about earlier in the video. It's used as preservative. It's something we use in home brewing to help stop fermentation if you want to do something like back sweetened ciders. So it's kind of a known entity. It was in there. We gave it a try. We didn't get it. Real quick, I want to talk about that. That does not mean all fruit punches will not ferment. Hawaiian Punch is just the most popular brand, the one I chose. There are several out there. Again, if you find a true fruit punch that's 100% juice, you should have no problem fermenting that. You definitely want to look for, again, those preservatives. One thing I've noticed in doing research for this whole series on different products is that they've gotten a little better now. Instead of just seeing a term potassium sorbate, they will mark that now as preservative. Or I've noticed some people labeling like that they just won't give the ingredient. They'll let you know if it's a preservative. So that helps you into identifying what are preservatives and then knowing, all right, well, this liquid, whatever we choose, whether it's a fruit punch, you know, Kool-Aid-like drink or soft drink, helps identify that, hey, that has a preservative in it. We probably won't be able to ferment that. Also, I want to talk about that I researched not just the high C fruit punch, but other fruit type drinks. Another popular one that I'm sure I'll get feedback on is Tampico. And it's similar. They're these similar drinks where they kind of use some kind of juice or juice concentrate. They're a little high fructose corn syrup, a little bit of water, but then they'll add preservatives to make it, you know, shelf stable. You know, have temperature fluctuations through shipping, just makes it a more stable product, and that's why they do that. But that's going to help stop us from fermenting it and turning it into an alcoholic beverage. So that being said, just if you want to try this, just again keep an eye out for these preservatives. You know, your potassium sorbates. I think there's potassium nitrite. There's a calcium sorbate. No, I won't say calcium nitrate. There's variations on those terms. Also sodium. I think sodium metasulfide or something like that. But anyway, it will note on there. We just want to keep an eye out for preservatives. But as far as fruit punches, will they ferment? Nope, unfortunately not. Good for me though. Luckily this has not appeared to go bad, so I'm probably going to add some rum to it and have me a nice rum punch later. With that being said, I hope you liked the video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them in the comment section. Or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Well, until next time, bottoms up.